America, I'm Hugh with laryngitis. Byron York doesn't have it, I hope. Byron had to wave off special report tonight because I can't talk, so I'm going to ask you to do most of the talking, but I'm going to tell you first. I was in New Hampshire last night at the Josiah Bartlett annual dinner. I've never seen 250 people where every other person's a state legislator. We had former Senator Scott Brown, former Senator John Sununu. They were not sitting at the same table. Former Governor Chris Sununu. It was just a fabulous time. Did you ever go up to New Hampshire except in the presidential years?
Most of the time it has been in the presidential years.
Oh, it's fab. Everyone lives, breathes, eats, drinks politics. I loved it. So, Byron, the Democrats caved last night. They didn't even give themselves a week-long victory lap on Tuesday night, and now they're shooting at each other. How mad are they at each other?
Well, they're extremely mad. Obviously, you have these 8 Democrats who sided with the Republicans to actually open the government, who, in other words, broke with the Democratic filibuster to stop the opening of the government. So you have those, and but none of them are running. Either they're retiring or they're not up for re-election in 2026. There's something interesting going on. I'm sure you've seen this. There appears to be an argument brewing among Democrats over why they shut the government down.
Yes.
And they don't agree with each other on why they did what they did. Now, if you listen to them, as you did for 41 days, they said it was about health care, that Republicans are going to take away the health care of millions of Americans, and Democrats had to shut down the government to stop Republicans from doing that. I mean, they said that thousands of times a day. So yesterday comes a column in the New York Times by Ezra Klein, who has talked to quite a few Democrats. And they tell him, no, it wasn't about health care. It wasn't about health. It was about stopping Trump's authoritarianism. And I guess all that stuff they said about Obamacare and subsidies and health care for millions of Americans, et cetera, they didn't actually mean it. And that this was more of a just kind of a generalized anti-Trump protest, which makes even less sense because
it makes it dumber.
No actual specific goal.
Now, Byron, I've talked to a number of Republicans who tell me that the Obamacare tax credits will be skinning down significantly, but they will emerge in some other form on the other side for middle-class people who have been screwed by the collapse of Obamacare. So, in other words, they were arguing about nothing because the Republicans already said, we're going to work with you on the tax credits. It's not going to be $1.5 trillion, and it's not going to be for people making $200,000 a year or $150,000 a year. Why didn't they just admit that up front?
Well, yeah, in my view, the reason they didn't admit that and the reason they stuck with it so long is because Obamacare, which is their premier policy achievement of the last half century, was at stake. Because take away this whole subsidies and emergency, et cetera, the cost of Obamacare is going up and up and up, around 30% this year. And what Republicans had predicted, which is that Obamacare would not make health care affordable. It would just be more and more and more expensive as there were more and more subsidies, was actually happening. And then Democrats took the first opportunity they had since the Obama administration, when they had the presidency, the House, and the Senate, that was in 2021 when Joe Biden became president, to add subsidies on top of the subsidies that are already in the law. They called these emergency subsidies because of the pandemic. They passed it for 1 year from 2021 to 22. Then they passed it again in 2022 for 3 years to expire on December 31st, 2025, this year. And these were on top of the actual subsidies that exist in law. Now, the COVID emergency, the Biden administration declared the COVID public health emergency over in May of 2023. So that's all gone. And so what Democrats saw was Obamacare sinking beneath higher and higher costs. And this is something that's unthinkable for them, that their policy, their greatest policy achievement of the past 50 years would just sink under rising costs. So I think that's why they fought so hard for more and more subsidies.
And Byron, I agree with that. I think we have to also realize, though, President Obama had 8 years in the White House. He accomplished three things. One was very important. He proved that anyone in America, including a black man, can win the presidency. And that is forever engraved in stone. It's a salute to the American Republic. The JCPOA, which is gone dead, and it took Donald Trump to kill off the Iranian nuclear program for real, and Obamacare, which is a hot smoking mess. He didn't get anything done, did he?
Yes, yes. If you go back to the debate in 2009 and 2010, first of all, the debate was all Obamacare debate was all between Democrats. Remember, there was about a minute and a half where they had 60 votes in the Senate, 60 Democrats. Right. And they used that to pass Obamacare. So they were debating amongst themselves. Some of them wanted a single-payer health care like the National Health Service in Britain. Others wanted a more market-based solution. They were having these arguments, and they realized that they only had the political support. They didn't have this political support for a single-payer plan, but they had the political support to create these Obamacare markets and to get this going. And there was a liberal senator at the time named Tom Harkin from Arkansas, and from Iowa, and he said what they were doing was like a starter home. You build what you can build, and then you add a living room, and then you add another bathroom and a bedroom on the back, and then you add a second story. They viewed this as the beginning of what would become a national health care system. And so the idea was to grow and grow and grow, but it was an entirely partisan thing. Not a single Republican in the Senate voted for Obamacare in 2010 when it passed. And as I said before, Democrats knew that they could only expand it when they had the White House, the House, and the Senate. And they didn't have that again until January of 2021.
And God help us, they're never going to get it back. The only thing to do with that starter home is tear it down to the studs and start over, because it's a mess. It is an absolute disaster. Byron York, thank you so much for joining me. We'll continue to talk about the ongoing. A week ago, the Democrats were on top of the world, and now they're at the bottom of a ditch. And they did it to themselves. They would have won anyway, even if they passed the CR. Byron York, thank you. Follow him on X at